Dragon Warrior for the NES. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this, really. It is one of the more popular JRPGs out there, so really, everyone knows about it, so why am I talking about it? But I am curious to see whether or not the very first game of the whole series still holds up today. So, let's pop this in and find out. Start the game up, name your character, and you find yourself in front of King Lorik, who tells you of your lineage to Erdrick and the quest that you will embark on. Save the world from the evil Dragon Lord. Oh, and there's some princess you can save, but whatever. After learning about magical keys and how to open doors, you're on your way to explore the magical land. But before that, you've got to properly equip yourself, because why not? You're only given 120 gold to spend on weapons, armors, and some items. This can be a little limiting, as equipment that's worth a damn is expensive. After getting what you need, you're on your own. There's not a whole lot of clear directions in this game, though there are plenty of characters that you can talk to that will give you some information. Whether or not that they're helpful is entirely dependent on them. When giving you this information, they speak in this oldie kind of language. They use words such as thee, thy, art, etc. I'm not entirely sure why they speak like this. Maybe the translators tried to be a bit more authentic, being medieval Europe and the like, but in my own personal opinion, it's completely pointless. Now, while there are relatively useless NPCs to talk to, there are some that can give some relatively useful information. More than I can say about Zelda 1. Here, at least they can tell you where you might find certain places or items. Granted, it's still a bit difficult to find where you must go, since there's hardly any real sense of direction. No one really ever tells you where you have to go. You're just kind of wandering around hoping that you're making some progress. Explore the lands until you see a point of interest on the map, go to it, possibly get information, then move on. You might get a little lost without a guide. The closest that you might get to know that you're heading into the right direction are the enemies. If you can take on an enemy without too much trouble, then you're on the right track. If they kick your ass without breaking a sweat, you might want to take a 180 back. Speaking of enemies, I should probably talk about the combat. It's just an average JRPG. And I mean average. Surprisingly, this whole journey is done with just this one guy. He takes on everyone by himself and asks help from no one like a badass. Because it's just a one-man party, the combat reflects that, as you only ever fight a single enemy at a time. This is a double-edged sword in my eyes, however. The positive of this is that the battles are quick. Enemies don't have too much HP, and only a couple hits will take them down if you're properly leveled up and equipped. I hardly ever felt like the battles are so drawn out that it wastes my time like it did in Megami Tensei. The drawback is probably what you're thinking. The battles aren't the most engaging. I never really felt like I need to strategize that much. Just whack them with the pointy end of your sword and that's it. There are only 10 spells in the whole game, and only 2 of them deal any damage. There are no status effects that you really need to worry about, perhaps other than sleep and maybe being unable to cast a spell. The most I really need to strategize is either put them to sleep or make them unable to cast spells. Sure, there's the hurt spell, but I hardly ever used it as I needed the NP to heal myself after battles. But other than that, you can make it through the whole game with just the attack option. Assuming that you've grinded, of course. Yep, this game resorts to one of the most dreaded use of extending your playtime: grinding. This is not an option. If you try and explore too far from home, you will meet enemies that will rip you apart faster than paper. This game is not that long, as the world itself is small, with only a handful of towns for you to visit. So you've got to kill many slimes before you can even attempt to fight the bats. After grinding for some time, you'll move out some more, then find the nearby enemies a little more bearable. Explore a little to find more enemies that will rip you to shreds, forcing you to grind a little more before you can even move on. Rinse and repeat until you win the game. It's a bit egregious, as it'll take longer and longer until you get the stats that the game expects you to get. It'll eventually ask you to get 3,000 experience points to level up. Enemies don't exactly give you a whole lot of points.
Only 50? What the fuck?
There's no real natural pacing to your level ups. It's all pretty much forced. This is pretty much how this game extends your playtime, given how small this world is. But I will admit, this didn't really break the game for me. Because battles are a bit faster since you're only fighting one guy, and really, you don't need to level up a whole lot, I could stomach this game more so than I could say Megami Tensei. The max level you can achieve is level 30, and from what I understand, you only need to be level 20 to have a guaranteed victory. Still, it doesn't make it good padding, but I'll just have to deal with it. I will say, however, the encounter rate is just about what you might expect from an RPG this old. Sometimes, you can make a fair amount of distance without getting stopped for battle. Other times, I would take a single step and get into another battle. And if I'm really lucky, I will get into constant battles every 2 or 3 steps. This will happen repeatedly until you get so frustrated by this encounter system that it'll drive you to break the controller. From what I understand, the way it works is that every step is a die roll to get into battle. Depending on what kind of tile that you step on, it'll have a different chance of getting into an encounter. Some tiles have a higher encounter rate than others. Because of that, you'll most likely be in a lot of battles. This drove me insane after a while, as the RNG can really screw you over. And yet, when I need to grind and I try to fight enemies, the encounter rate decides to be more lenient. The time that I want to get into battles, and the game won't let me. There are 2 levities to this, however. One is that if you're over leveled when fighting some enemies, there's a chance they'll just run away, saving you some time. 2 is that there are ways to have enemies leave you alone. There's the fairy water that prevents weaker enemies from getting close to you, though only one person in the whole game sells them. And once you reach level 15, you can cast the spell Repel, which does the exact same thing as the fairy water. The fact that the game gives you options to not fight is a godsend, especially when I just want to get to a certain town. Though, it's only good in the overworld. Enemies in dungeons doesn't really give a damn that you're repelling them. Eventually, you'll come across your first dungeon, and it's dark. Like, really dark. Like, seriously, you can't find your way around. You're gonna have to buy a torch in town to see where you're going, and yep, okay, perfect, I can deal with this. Every single dungeon is like this, darker than a black hole until you light your way. If you forgot a torch, or you don't have access to the radiant spell, which just lights more of the dungeon than the torch, then being stuck in the dark is absolutely miserable. Anyways, this place contains no enemies to fight, so this does help you get used to finding your way around dungeons without too much danger. Which is good because this place is a maze. The game does not provide an in-game map, so I recommend you draw your own as you explore. This might be a good time to go over the dungeons a bit. They're okay. After going through the whole game, I realized there's only 5 dungeons. And out of those 5, one of them didn't have any real danger, and the other one is just a pathway to get to another country. And I guess it has the princess, but whatever. So really, there's only 3 dungeons, and out of those 3, one of them is entirely optional. So in total, only 2 of them are needed to finish the game. One to get the silver harp that is needed to acquire one of the MacGuffins, and the other being Castle Sharlock. I was admittedly expecting more dungeons to explore, but it is an early NES game, so I can't really ask for much. Each one is just one giant maze that you explore. None of them have any real special property to them, like poisonous swamps or lava-covered floors and that kind of stuff. They all just kind of look the same and they're nothing to write home about. Still, it is a nice change of pace when exploring these, as I stopped grinding for 5 minutes to be in these. And you will find some loot in these places, though they're not the most exciting to get. You'll find some gold, and I mean some. Like, they'll only contain maybe 11 gold pieces. Damn cheapskate chest. Or a mundane item like an herb. Oddly enough, if you leave and come back, the chest respawns. So they're a good way to earn a little cash early on. And you might even find a cursed belt. Put it on and you're cursed. What did you expect putting it on? It's called cursed belt for a reason. Inside this cave is a tablet telling you to find 3 MacGuffins so you can reach the final dungeon, Castle Sharlock. And this place is chilling just right below the starting area. You'd think you could just, get a boat and sail there, but no, it's definitely easier to find 3 items to build a bridge. You'll find 3 old men that were entrusted with keeping these things safe. One of them will gladly give it to you. The other asks for a monster summoning harp that I won't question as to why he needs such an item in the first place. And the other's just a dick, telling you that you're not the one to save the world and kicks you out.
Well, what can I do then? He won't give me what I need. I don't know, maybe there's something else I can do in the meantime, but there's not a whole lot I can do right now. Wait, wasn't there a princess I'm supposed to save?
Well, surprisingly, this part of the quest is entirely optional. You can go through the whole game without saving her, and she'd probably be stuck in her captive state and most likely starve to death. But I am a hero, so I decided to save her. What's kind of cool is that if you do save her, you yourself carry her back to the castle. It doesn't cut out after you save her, or plays a cutscene. Nope, you take her back. I'll admit, I kinda like that. After you save her, she gives you her love. No, really, that's an item she gives you, Gwaelin's love. Use it, and she will tell you how much experience you need to level up and where you are relative to the castle. Talk to her again, and she'll ask if you love her.
Look, princess, I just met you, I know nothing about you, plus I kinda got this other thing going on with the girl right now, so I'm gonna have to say no. Didn't you hear what I said? I said no. You're not gonna take no for an answer, will you? Fine, twist my arm, why don't you?
Well, after that, use her love to find an item that you need, Erdrick's token. Bring the token back to that distrusting old man, then he'll decide to help you out. And if you decide to talk to him again, he'll tell you that you have no business here and go away. I think there's a reason he lives all alone away from society. Once you got all the required items, just use them to build a bridge that I'm pretty sure I could have just hired any bridge builder to make for me, to tackle the final dungeon of the game, Castle Sharlock. And this place is huge, which admittedly seems fitting. There are 7 floors that you must go through, and the last few floors containing the strongest enemies in the whole game. Did I mention that you needed to grind? This place has numerous stairs that you can go through, some of them being dead ends, though you won't realize that until you go through a couple flights of stairs. But really, this place is not that hard. Once you get an idea of where you need to go and you've been drawing a map, you can find your way fairly easily. The worst that this dungeon throws at you is that the stairs you need to go through is hidden behind a throne. Just hope that the random encounter RNG doesn't completely screw you over. I swear, it's just as all over the place as the overworld. By the end of this whole place is the big bad dragon lord that wants to rule the land. Talk to him and he'll propose that you fight alongside him and you'll rule the world together.
Ruling the world with an iron fist is a pretty tempting offer. Screw it, I don't see this going horribly wrong.
Oh, right. I was supposed to defeat him.
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them!
Alright, I'll try again. Jeez. This time, I tell him no, and we fight. Takes me to the battle screen and oh my god, what is that? This derpy looking guy is the big bad dragon lord everyone's terrified over?
This guy couldn't scare a 4-year-old even if he tried. I don't see why people are so, oh god, he's a dragon.
Yep, this is his final form once you defeat his first form, which was surprisingly easy to take down. Now this guy just takes out a third of my health with a single strike, and when I attack, it does enough damage, I suppose. Unfortunately, it's not enough and I die. Is it too late to accept your offer? Thankfully, the penalty for death isn't terrible. It'll respawn you back to King Lorik with half of your gold gone. Sure, you gotta walk all the way back to your last point, but given how small the world is, it doesn't take long to get back. So, I walk all the way back to the castle to try again, and this time, the RNG screws me over. I can't take 5 steps without an enemy hassling me and drains me of my resources. By the time I reach the Dragon Lord, I barely have enough MP to work with. So, he offers me power again. I tell him to shut up and fight, and he destroys me. Great. Third time's the charm. Go to the castle, but this time, his minions decide to leave me alone. Once more, he offers me power, I tell him to go f*** himself, and we fight. Now that I have more MP to work with, this time, the fight goes by much more smoothly. Although, it is a redundant fight, as the general strategy is hit him 1, maybe 2 times if I'm lucky. He takes out 2/3 of my health, heal, then attack. Rinse and repeat until the game says you win. And I did. I defeated the Dragon Lord and saved the land from terrible destruction. You're kicked out of the castle with all your stats restored, and all you need to do is return to the starting castle where the king is waiting for you. He tells you a job well done and offers his land for you to rule as a fair and just king. After thinking about it, my guy tells them, holy shit! The main character talks! I didn't know that was possible in one of these games. Well, with that revelation out of the way, he tells the king that he wants to rule a land that he himself will find. Yeah, good luck with that, pal. And if you save the princess, she runs out and asks if she can join you.
Well, I don't want to be branded a liar when I tell my friends that I'm dating a princess, so why not?
So our hero carries the princess off, looking for more adventures. We're given a brief epilogue, credits, then shown to fancy the end until you reset the system.
Well then, after all of that, what left do I have to say about this game? It's okay. It's dated, but at least I could make it through all the way.
While this game requires a lot of grinding to progress, story that's a bit lackluster, combat that's not the most engaging, it's still playable. If you want an old school JRPG and don't mind the more archaic mechanics, then I give it a try, though it's definitely not for everyone.
And there do exist multiple ports of this game if you're looking to try it out for yourself. There's one on SNES, Game Boy, and even Android iOS, so there are options for you looking to try it for yourself. But again, only do it if you can handle the more grindy mechanics of it. Well, that's all I have to say about the game, and I'll see you all... Oh god, I think that's my ex. She must have found out I was dating a princess. If she asks, I wasn't here.